Go on and rest your mind and sleep, sleep in Savior is born. Oh, yes. Christ, Christ the Savior is born. What a joyous day.
Well, here we are. It's a few days before Christmas, 13 days before Christmas. And, that's one of my favorite songs, Silent Night by the Temptations. I'm a Detroit boy, so what can I say? It's Detroit. Used to go to Motown Review during Christmas holidays, and I don't know where we got the money from. I tell you, I don't know where people got the money from, but people were literally lined up around the block to see the Temptations and to see the Motown Review because we had it. It was ours. It was our Motown Review. I loved it. Loved it. Right now, I'm trying to get the. I think I'm going to have to shut this down and do it again. I'm trying to get Facebook up because I have a few folks that watch out there on Facebook, come through on Facebook. So I'll get it up for you in terms of being on the live stream. Hey, but I'm looking at, and you all I'm sure listening to if you're not looking at the impeachment hearings, and I tell you, I've never been so embarrassed to be a Black American in all my life. I listened to Sheila Jackson Lee, Congressman Johnson, Congressman Jackson, and I can tell all these guys are preachers. Sheila Jackson Lee's not a preacher. But I can tell all of these dudes, they're preachers, and I tell you, they're pathetic. They're pathetic. Trying to get this Facebook to go live. It's not going live for some reason. That's on you. You did it. But no, seriously. So Sheila Jackson Lee and all of these Black congressmen who sit on the Judiciary Committee, they're sitting there and they're lying. They're telling bald-faced lies. And they want to evoke the name of Barbara Jordan because, in my opinion, she was one of the last true great Black congressmen besides J.C. Watts. It's amazing what these folks will do, how they will lie, how they will cheat. They will do anything. It's like, can you believe that Adam Schiff was actually a prosecutor as much as he lies? Who else has he lied on? How many people did he lie on when he was a federal prosecutor? How did he obstruct justice when he was a federal prosecutor? Let's go back and play that game. Because, see, I don't trust any of these people. I have a friend who worked in the government, served in the Navy, served in a presidential cabinet. And he always talks about how, the FBI is above reproach. They would never do, BS. We know that Hoover used the FBI to blackmail politicians and to keep his own butt out of the news. You know, and you have these people who run around with a blanket over their head. And what makes me angry is that they want to reach out and call the rest of us names. Like we're the ones who screwed up when they're proven to. It's kind of like Joe Biden. When you look back at Joe's record, when you look back at Joe's track record as a senator, he's generally always been on the wrong side of the issue. Not even close to reality. Not even close. Even when Bill Clinton was in. This is a guy who can't seem to get out of his way, okay? Can't seem to get out of his own way. But with that said, and I'm just saying, the Democrats just can't get out of their way. So I'm looking at Sheila Jackson Lee out here, and I have a clip up of Sheila Jackson Lee, and I think I'm going to play it. I'm going to share this with you because it's so embarrassing for me as a Black American to see this, to hear this Black woman who I had some respect for, but I've lost all respect for as a legislator. Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas. I don't know if she took Barbara Jordan's seat or not, but I can say that Sheila has always been, like most Black politicians in Washington, D.C., out of touch with reality, out of touch with her people. The first time I met Sheila Jackson Lee, and the first time I saw Sheila Jackson Lee in person and met her, she was running down the hall. We had called 120 Black HBCU presidents to Washington, the first time that had been done since Ronald Reagan did it in 84 when he created the HBCU initiative. For those of you who don't know what HBCU is, it's historically Black colleges and universities. They turn out over, I think it's something like 80% of Black graduates in education and engineering, something like that, medicine. It's incredible the number. And without these schools, believe me, we would not have the few Black professionals we have. We need more. So Sheila Jackson Lee was running down the street screaming, or running down the hallway screaming, "These are our people. These are our people. You can't have our people." Well, you didn't call them to Washington. You're not doing any of the people's work. They're not doing the people's work. That's the problem with Black politicians. They do the work of the Democrat Party because they Democrats and they do what they told, like good little niggers. And everybody wants to put them on a pedestal except Charles Butler. They're just congressmen. They're a Senate. They work for us. I don't put them on a pedestal. I don't speak about them in the third person. Oh, man, I'm a trip. But see, the good thing is I know that. But so Sheila was running down the hallway screaming, "These are people," and her people were with us, getting some business done, getting some money divvied up to them. Red State Talk Radio. Red State Talk Radio. When I put this up, I always forget to put in the talk in there. And talk is very important when you're trying to what the heck? These phones have their own way of doing things, as you well know. Red State Talk Radio. But I'm going to play Sheila because it's important to know where people are and what they're doing. And I look at Sheila Jackson Lee, who represents a war zone. Her area, her district is nothing but a war zone by any definition. And that's what I call it. I don't give them any break. I don't think they deserve a break. So if it wasn't Elijah Cummings and his nonsense, now it's Sheila Jackson Lee and her nonsense. So look, we're gonna play Sheila Jackson Lee speaking at the impeachment hearing, and she says Trump wasn't trying to fight corruption in the Ukraine. So let's play it. Let's see what happens.
I thank the chairman. This is about distraction, distraction, distraction. Our good friends spent 3 hours saying President did not target the Bidens. Now they're saying that he did. So which is it? Now I'm holding the classified, unclassified conversation, and let me just clarify a certain point. And that point is that I did read the transcript, and it did say us, but there's nothing in the president's notes that even suggested that the question that he asked was for the American people. In testimony by Mr. Goldman, who obviously went through every aspect of this, I asked a question about whether or not the president said anything from the notes that are given, the briefing that is given by those representatives of the United States government, the staff of the National Security Council, the State Department, the Defense Department, on corruption. He didn't speak anything about corruption that he was briefed on. And if you go through the call, he continues to mention the Bidens. And so this, again, is about Ukraine.
Okay, so let me just stop right there. She said he continues to mention Ukraine. And he continues to mention the Bidens and Ukraine. Well, you have to mention the Bidens. He didn't mention Joe Biden, by the way. This is the lie that continues to be perpetrated. Like he was talking about Joe Biden. He wasn't talking about Joe Biden. He said, look into Hunter and Hunter's connection with the Ukraine. He didn't say, well, we're gonna talk about, I want you to find out some dirt. Remember Adam Schiff? Adam Schiff said, well, the president came out and he talked about going after getting dirt on Hunter. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. I wish he had have, but he didn't. He didn't say that. And they continue to lie on the president. They continue to say that when Adam Schiff got called out on lying on the president, they said, well, it's a parody. He's not lying. It's just a parody. No, he's tried to sell it as fact. Well, the president said 8 times, unless you get me dirt on Joe Biden, you will not get this money. He didn't say that. But if you allow the Democrats to continue to run with their narratives, and they still run with their narratives of collusion, of somehow inviting the foreign governments to interfere in our elections. Let me just say this about that. We, the United States government, we interfere in elections all the time. The first time, and I don't know about you all, and when you went to college or, when you studied or whatever, but I remember as a young boy reading about Eisenhower participating in the arrest and killing of Lumumba. And see, many of you don't know who Lumumba was, but Lumumba was the president of a duly elected president of a country, and Lumumba was killed. He was killed. I mean, he was brutally, savagely killed. He was assassinated. And he was the president of Congo. And I remember the first country that I learned about in Africa was the Congo because of Lumumba. And Patrice Lumumba was like the Che Guevara of the era. Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, and supposedly Eisenhower had him assassinated, removed from office. So as you're saying, and I was a little boy, you have to remember, I mean, this was in the 50s. And actually, it was in 61 when he got killed. So I was like 9 years old. But I was thinking, how could America go and kidnap and kill and overthrow a duly elected president? Now, you have to understand, I've always been involved in politics. I've always been interested in history. Always. I can't remember when I wasn't reading history books, when I wasn't reading about the Crusades, when I wasn't reading about wars, because I always wanted to be a warrior. So I read everything I could on fighting and wars and battles. So if you ask me about the Civil War or the American Revolution or World War I, World War II, I have all this stuff, Korean War, now Vietnam, I have all this stuff in my head. The wars that I haven't followed is this last war that we've had in Afghanistan, because I think that Afghanistan and the war in Afghanistan is more of a economic glut and engine for the military industrial complex. There's no reason that we should be in Afghanistan. There's no reason that we need to be there fighting wars that they fought and putting all this money into that poor ass country. Poppy growers, just an aside, a poppy farmer in Afghanistan makes about $3,000 a year on his crop. Why can't we destroy all the crops and pay these guys three grand? Instead, we're spending billions of dollars in that country, just billions. But we haven't destroyed the poppy farms. Why? Because America has a need for cocaine and heroin and stuff like that. So, those are issues that when you start really pulling all these things together, you just have to stop and say, wait a minute, start connecting dots. And if we start connecting dots, it gets real scary. But Ollie North kind of pull back to cover during Iran-Contra. We get involved in elections and in countries all the time. In fact, in the 60s, I think a law was passed that America or an American agency couldn't assassinate a head of state, a foreign head of state. And I'll look that up, but I remember very clearly that the American government passed, the Congress passed a law that we couldn't kill a foreign head of state, and we couldn't do assassinations. But we we were involved in Asia. We were involved in Europe. We're involved in Africa. That's what we do. That's, what we do. So looking this up, I'm looking up, it says here, American law and policy on assassination of foreign leaders, the practicality of maintaining the status quo. And so when we're talking about going over and after 9/11 and killing people, people start saying, well, we need to revoke Executive Order 1233. That's 12333. That would only undermine the United States' moral position and damage the credibility of its public diplomacy at a time when both are critical to the pursuit of its national interest. Ooh, that is heavy. That's heavy. See, that executive order, they say there is little utility to be found in retracting the executive order. And this executive order was put in place by President Ford. So I'm a few years off. So it was in the 70s. But I remember very clearly discussing this in college and discussing this in the business. I was in the Navy. So they said no standing federal law criminalizes the assassination of a foreign official outside the boundaries of the United States. In the absence of such a statute, only Executive Order 12333 prohibits the act of state-sponsored killing. That's U.S. killing. Okay. The order, which was drafted in the mid-70s in the wake of revelations of the government's involvement in plots to kill several foreign leaders, has been maintained by every administration since Gerald Ford. And in recent years, however, but actually started in Nixon's administration. Yeah, so but it was passed and initiate, or it became effective during Ford's administration. So, however, there have been several attempts by Congress to override the executive order. And the most recent of these initiatives was H.R. 19, the Terrorist Elimination Act of 2001, proposed in January of this year by Representative Barr of Georgia. And that's to go after the heads of state who organized and who approved 9/11. Isn't that interesting? So we're talking about, how the Russians affected our elections. Well, we know we're supposed to be under attack. That's the way the game's played. Not only did Russia try to go after our elections, China tried to hack our elections. The Ukraine tried to hack our elections. We don't know who else tried. India tried to hack our elections. Everybody tried to impact these elections because they had their own agendas. And let me tell you this, the last people and the last person that these people wanted to see in office is Donald J. Trump, because Donald's not playing. Barack Obama said very clearly, Barack Obama said, I don't want the Israeli people to elect Bibi Netanyahu. I don't like him. He put in his 2 cents about the election. And he publicly announced that he spent $300,000 to change the election of Bibi Netanyahu. Bibi won anyway, because people love Bibi in Israel. Bibi's my kind of guy. He's like a Trump. He's like, hey, you want to attack Israel? We're going to attack you. Let's be clear. You attack us, we're going to scorch you. So, this is the whole thing about elections and what we do in elections, how people interfere in elections. We do it all the time. This is nothing new. Let's get busy. Let's move beyond the collusion of Russia. And the only people who had any connection or collusion with Russia was the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. The DNC got hacked. The RNC didn't get hacked because they listened to the CIA and the FBI and they shored up their systems. Drinking a little coffee this morning, and it is truly, truly wonderful. Drinking in my favorite cup, my University of Michigan cup. Oh, man. But Patrice Lumumba was the first person I remember reading about the U.S. Having taken them out or having some impact on other folks' elections. And I always thought, that's interesting. What would that happen? What would that what if that happened to us? What would we do? Then you look, Bobby Kennedy got killed. Gerald Ford was shot. But those weren't by foreign entities. Gerald Ford got shot by, I forget that little girl's name. And Sirhan killed Bobby Kennedy over a foreign issue because he said he was going to support Israel over Palestine. But that whole thing is crazy because there were more bullets they found more bullet holes in that passageway than Sirhan had in the gun. Amazing. But I'm sure they would come up with some craziness. Hey, look, let's take a short break and come back. And let's talk about what Collins had to say today. Collins had to take Congress on, and I really appreciate what he had to do and what he had to say. His opening statement, in my opinion, was marvelous. But then I'm a little biased, so we're gonna play a little Temptations, but this is not Silent Night. This is going to be Give Love on Christmas Day. We'll be right back.
endless, buying special gifts. It's time to be kind to one and all. It's that time of year when good friends are dear, and you wish you could give more than just a present from a store. Why don't you give love on Christmas Day? Even the man who has everything would be so happy if you would ring. Give love on Christmas Day. No greater gift is there than love. People you don't know, smiles and nods, hello, everywhere. There's an air of Christmas joy. It's that once a year when the world's sincere, and you'd like to find a way to show the things that words can't say. Why don't you give love on Christmas Day? Oh, the man on the street and the couple upstairs all need to know there's someone who cares. Give love on Christmas Day. No greater gift is giving love. What the world needs is love. Yes, the world needs your love. Why don't you give love on Christmas Day? Every little child on Santa's knee has room for your love underneath his tree. Give love on Christmas Day. No greater gift is there than love. What the world needs is love. Yes, the world needs your love.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to the Reality Check with Charles Butler. And I was talking about how embarrassed I am looking at these black politicians, all of them Democrats, sitting in the House Judiciary Committee and sitting there lying on the president, sitting there lying about the transcript. In fact, I'm going to download the transcript. I'm going to print this transcript off. Let's see, the Trump transcript. This always comes up, Trump's transcripts. There we go. You have to read this thing for yourself. You have to read this thing for yourself. You can't take anybody's word for it. You have to read it yourself. You have to read it yourself. You have to, you can't, as I always say to people when they say, Charles, would you please explain? No, I go, you know what? Go and read it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Go read it. So as I was saying, I'm just so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed by these black politicians who continue to lie on the president and continue to say things that the president supposedly said that aren't true. They're not true. They don't have any truth to them. And this guy, Hank Johnson, Hank Johnson, I don't know where this guy came from, but he's so country. It's amazing. It's amazing. He's so country. It's amazing. Sheila Jackson Lee is a bit more sophisticated. But Hank Johnson, I'm laughing because the guy said things, if a white person said these things, say, oh my God, that's racist. It's racist. He's a racist. But, Hank said them and it's like, it's okay. They kind of I'm sure people were giggling to themselves when he made the comment that pot calling the kettle black. That's a euphemism. That's a euphemism we use in the black community, and it means I can't believe that you're um, calling what you're doing something that shouldn't be done. Okay, so I'm gonna play Hank here, Representative Hank Johnson. This is what he said. Now listen, this is not Charles Butler. This is Hank.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to this amendment, and I would say that the pot calling the kettle black is not something that we should do. I don't know what members.
Now you see that? You hear that giggle? You hear that laugh? I mean, folks in the South knows what that means. The pot calling the kettle black. Now this is a white guy laughing. Listen to this. Here we go. Well, listen.
Is not something that we should do. I don't know.
Okay, listen. Let's play again. Here we go.
The kettle black is not something that we should do. I don't know what members, if any, have had any problems with substance abuse, been busted in DUI. I don't know. But if I did, I wouldn't raise it against anyone on this committee. I don't think it's proper. And you know, I think we got to get back down to what is most important here. This is a question that stands out like a big throbbing sore toe inside of a shoe that's too small. And that is this question: is it ever okay for a president of the United States of America to invite foreign interference in an upcoming presidential election campaign?
So he has this long pause, and the pause is about 15, 20 seconds. And so people didn't know if he'd quit talking, if he was finished, or if they should answer the question. Because see, this is the deal about this, you know, the way the Senate or these committees work. So you make a statement, and nobody's supposed to interrupt you while you're making your statement. You have 5 minutes. So he asked the question, and he just pauses, and then he comes back, and this is what and so people say, well, should we have answered? Should we answer? Because he's so stupid. He's so stupid. He can't follow protocol. That's how dumb he is. Who sent this dumb Negro pastor to Congress? Now listen to this exchange. You got to listen. He had about a 15-second pause, which is a long time to be. I just skipped over it. Let's play it. Here we go.
Is the gentleman seeking an answer?
Is the gentleman yield?
I'll be glad to answer.
Silent.
See, they said, okay, wait a minute. Is the gentleman seeking an answer? The Republicans are asking a question. Is the gentleman seeking an answer to his question? Well, they're not supposed to answer his question. They're not supposed to interrupt him. But he's a Negro pastor who doesn't understand anything about anything, like most black pastors. I mean, where did this guy come from? He is see, I can't. Let's continue. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this one more, a little bit. Here we go.
Gentleman yield.
I'll be glad to answer.
The silent.
Gentleman has the time.
The silence
People respond.
was and is deafening. And there'll be plenty of time for you to respond to that question, and I would invite you to do so. I gave you an opportunity of about 10 or 15 seconds while you could get your story together, and nobody came up with a story.
See, that's more of that. There's more of that voodoo intellect. I gave you a time. He didn't ask them to respond. They couldn't respond because it would be it would be interrupting him. That's not. So you could get your story together. You dummy. Hank Johnson is an embarrassment. These guys are such an embarrassment. These black congressmen are an embarrassment to their constituents. They're taking us out of the world, taking their constituents out of the world, asshole backwards. Hank Johnson from Georgia, 4th District. So stupid. I gave you a chance to respond. No, you didn't give him a chance to respond. To get yourself together, you just a lie. You're lying. You're lying, Hank. Or are you just dumb? Here we go.
So I'm going to let you move to strike the last word and explain that to the American people. It's never proper for a United States president to hold a foreign country over a barrel to make them do that president's personal bidding and holding needed security assistance, dangling it, and dangling the fact that I'll give it to you if you do this. I mean, that's exactly what happened.
Typical Negro preacher. He has absolutely no intellectual grasp of the issue. No intellectual grasp of the. He reminds me of Al Sharpton, another jack-leg Negro preacher. And Jesse wasn't much better. But he has no grasp of the intellectual heft of this issue. He wants to say, well, we held money, people got killed, lie after lie after lie. We didn't hold anything back. It's been proven in the Mueller report. It's been proven in the testimony from the hearings, and the president of the Ukraine said, I didn't even know the money was on hold. But the Democrats said, well, in his mind, he's just stupid. See, he's a Ukrainian. We know exactly what happened, and we know what you were thinking because we know what's best for you. The president of Ukraine said, wait a minute, I didn't even know that money was on hold. But the Democrats said, well, we know that you knew that the money was on hold, and you just, you don't know anything about how you should run your country or how you should interface with this president, because we can tell you what you were thinking. You don't even know what you were thinking. And then Al Jackson said, well, we withheld this money while people were killed. Well, that's not true. They were battling, and so what? The Ukrainians and the Russians had talks yesterday. Zelensky and Putin had talks yesterday. They didn't resolve to dial things back, but at least they had talks. Let's continue with Al Johnson. This guy is such a loser. He is so stupid, and he's too damn old to be in the House.
It's like the American people understand what happened. Those are the facts. The president said it when he released the transcript of the summary of that phone call on July 25th. The summary of the president's own words shows that the president tried to get President Zelensky to interfere in the upcoming presidential election. That is established by the facts. So this is not about Hunter Biden, and they've said that on the other side repeatedly up until they start talking about Hunter Biden having some substance abuse problems. You can't have it both ways. Let's be honest.
See, there he goes, lying again. He's lying again. And let me say this. They've always, the Republicans have always talked about Hunter Biden, because they're not talking about Joe Biden. In the transcript, the president never mentions Joe Biden, his political rival. And as a matter of fact, Zelensky, I think, brings up, let's Trump bring up Biden first. I'm trying to think here. Biden. Yeah, here we go. So the president, and this is exactly what he says. Let me see. The former ambassador from the United States, the woman, was bad news, and she was. They're talking about Yovanovitch, and Yovanovitch was bad news. She was horrible, and somehow she's not supposed to be fired because she's doing a lousy job because she's a woman. Sorry, you're in the big leagues. Put on your big boy panties. You serve at the will of the president, and you're doing a horrible job. Horrible. You didn't say anything about Hunter Biden, the vice president's son, being on this board. And so they go on. She was bad news. And the people she was dealing with in Ukraine were bad news. So I just want to let you know that. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son. He didn't say anything about Joe Biden. He said there's a lot of talk about Biden's son. That Biden stopped. Oh, here we go. Now, this is in relation to Joe. That Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. He has to, because of what Joe said in the tape. Remember what Joe said before the Foreign Relations Committee? Joe Biden said, wait a minute. You got 6 hours. You got 6 hours to man up and fire this prosecutor. If you don't fire this prosecutor, then you're not going to get this $1 billion in loan guarantees. And so the president said, well, you can't stop that. The president feeling threatened, the president of Ukraine feeling threatened, said, you can't do that. Only the president can do it. This is out of Joe Biden's mouth. And Joe said, well, call him. Like, yeah, no, I have the ability to stop this money. Call the president if you don't believe I don't have that power. So the quid pro quo, that is classic quid pro quo. If you don't do X, you won't get Y. If you do X, you fire the prosecutor who's looking into Burisma and my son, then you'll get your loan guarantee. Simple. That's quid pro quo. But see, Democrats want to tell us, and I tell you, I was getting a little confused. I was getting brainwashed because these people continue to lie, and they lie well. So you have to pick up the transcript and you have to look at it for yourself, because if you don't, you're taking someone else's interpretation. And I say, pick it up, look at it, and read about it. President Trump said Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. That's what the president said. Because Biden did go around bragging about he stopped the prosecution with his threat to withhold $1 billion loan guarantee. And by the way, Barack Obama, when you talk about collusion, when you talk about the issues with Ukraine, Barack Obama didn't stop Putin from taking over Crimea. I don't know why no one's ever brought that up. The Crimea is part of the Ukraine. That's what this war, this conflict is about. Ukraine used to be considered the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. So when you lose your breadbasket, what do you have? So let's see, what would be considered the breadbasket of the U.S.? Iowa. Let's see, Iowa maybe. Let's see, I don't know, Nebraska. Yeah. But we have so many states that produce wheat and grain and whatnot. So, we just can't isolate a state, but we have, areas. And I would say it's in that Iowa, Nebraska, area. Anyway, so long story short, I've noticed that for the last, today, Everyone's harping on the four things that I've harped on since the Democrats have talked about impeachment. So whether it was Al Green or Maxine Waters, I said the same thing. And that is, a president to be impeached has to commit treason, bribery, high crimes, misdemeanors. I've said that. Today, you must have had 5 or 6 people say the same thing. And that's at the heart of this issue. That's at the heart of what we're doing. That's at the heart of their case. And the president hasn't committed any of those things. So the president can't, even if the president did request that Zelensky go after Biden or go after whomever, is that a crime? No. They need to change. They need to make it a crime if they want to do that. So, what I look at and what I'm looking at, and you probably are thinking the same thing. What are the Democrats doing? What are they talking about? Because this is what's scary. As Castor said last week, who was testifying for the White House and Democrats, they said, if, how'd they say it? What you're doing to the president can be done to anyone in government, whether it's the president, the vice president, the congressman, the senators. It can be done to anyone. I mean, the Democrats are going down a dangerous, dangerous path, and they're setting a dangerous precedent. But, I've said about those 4 things: treason, bribery, high crimes, misdemeanors. I've talked about that. I've talked about that since Maxine Waters and Al Green brought it up. Impeach 45, Maxine Waters, another black congresswoman. Al Green, black congressman. We have to impeach the president because we can't beat him in an election. That's probably most honest thing that any of them have said. You can't make this stuff up, people. I tell you can't make this stuff up. So I'm going to close out with old Hank Johnson.
This is about our conscience, the conscience of the nation, the conscience of my friends on the other side of the aisle. Do you believe that we should allow this to go unaddressed, what the president did? Because we are a country of precedent. We are a country of rule of law. We are a country of norms and traditions. Are we going to allow the violation of our norms, our traditions, our legal precedent? Because after all, bribery was not a crime. There was no criminal code when the framers passed the Constitution, but they said bribery in there. And what bribery meant was, I'm offering you something if you do something for me. I'll give you this. In other words, you give me this, I'll give you that. That's what we had in this.
Typical Negro preacher stuff. He sounds like a Negro preacher. No intellect. He doesn't even know what the legal statute of bribery is. He's not an attorney. He's a preacher. Getting a steady paycheck. Anyway, I wish I could be more compassionate, but I can't. It just bothers me, though, that these people are representing folks who can't speak for themselves. Anyway, look, we're going to close out today and wish you all a happy season. Hope you're having fun out there. And I'm going to play a little Christmas song, a little Nat King Cole, little Christmas carol. Let's play it. Da-da-da. Here we go.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Jack Frost nipping at your nose. Yuletide carols being sung by choir. And folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their...
Okay. Well, we are doing our thing. So this is the after show. So we always spend a little time going over the show and what kind of transpired. But coming back to the 4 articles that you need to have an impeachment of president: treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. They could even pin a misdemeanor on the president. Can't put a misdemeanor on the guy, but you want to remove him totally? No, not going to happen. And it never should happen. We shouldn't even be spending time on this. What they should have spent time on was passing USMCA. What they should spend time on is cleaning up these war zones. We'll talk about that tomorrow when we come back. These war zones in America. Ta-da. Thursday, December 12th. Hey, look, have a great rest of your day. And we're going to say goodbye. And thanks for tuning in. Tell your friends and family.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.